This is episode 43, and today we're talking about real estate and some aspects of the blockchain. Thank you for tuning in. Today we're talking about real estate, and real estate is a great industry to get into. They're not making more land, so real estate is what they call a scarce resource because they're not making more of it. So once it runs out, and in essence, you can build up, but they're not really making more real estate. So real estate is a great industry to be in. You can be in many ways. You can own a house, you can own an apartment, you can own a condo, you can own a co-op, you can own hotels. There's many things you can do when it comes to real estate. You can own a place, what they call commercial, where it's office spaces, and commercial is typically 5 units or more. So if you're dealing with where people actually live and it's 5 units or more, it's considered commercial. If it's 4 units and down, it's considered residential, at least in the US. And then real estate is typically owned in LLCs. It can be owned in S corps. If you're in New York, you can be owned in S corps because LLC is a little bit more difficult to establish. But it can be owned in an S corp. But in the US, it's typically called an LLC. Other countries have different names for it, but it's typically the same thing. Like instead of calling it LLC, in other countries they'll call it a private limited company. They have that in South Africa. They have that in India. They have it in Iceland. They typically have that name for it, but it's typically the same thing as an LLC in the US. And they typically own real estate, and they also can own many other things. But when it comes to real estate, there are a lot of things you can do to raise money to buy real estate. You can do seller financing. The idea is that instead of going to a bank for the money, you can go to the owner. If the owner may be a little older and looking to retire, looking to have some passive income without the headaches of being a landlord, they can just give you the land and you start paying them month to month. Instead of paying the bank month to month, then you start paying them. And if they want the property back, they can just foreclose on it, just like a bank would foreclose on it if you stop paying. So that way, the owner of the real estate won't have the headaches of tenants and dealing with repairs. It'll be your job, and you can start building some ownership and some equity fairly easier than going through a traditional bank. What else you can do subject to? The idea is that if a person's behind their payments and about to lose it, you can potentially take over the mortgage payments. And then that way you'll be able to put a tenant in it, and then the bank won't foreclose on it typically because you're taking the property subject to the mortgage. So the benefit is that the person who owns the property won't have a foreclosure on their credit, and then the benefit of you is that you have real estate property without necessarily having to have traditional financing aspects of it. So you better put a tenant in it, you better make money off property that you're taking subject to the mortgage. Also, you can do bird dogging. We talk about this a lot. The idea is that you go to a real estate association. Typically, most cities, no matter how big or small, they have a real estate investment club. And you can meet those individuals and say, what kind of properties do you like? And then you can go find those properties for sale. You can potentially, what they call bird dogging, you can potentially talk to the person, what they call an option agreement, and what they call an assignment contract. You can potentially take an option. I'm going to buy your property on an option contract. And that option contract gives you the ability to buy the property within a certain time period. So it could be like a 90-day option contract, it could be a 30-day option contract. So you'll get the house under contract, and then you'll sell that option to the actual real estate investor. And the real estate investor will buy the option contract from you, so you get paid that way. And you get paid that way. And then it involves an option contract and assignment. So you're assigning the contract to that individual. There's many other things you can do. You can get your traditional FHA loan, which requires roughly like 3.5% down of the entire purchase price, and then that way you can potentially, it can be a duplex. As I mentioned, a residential loan is 4 units and down, so you can potentially buy you a quad, or you can buy your duplex, which is 2 properties, whatever it may be. You can buy multiple units, multiple properties with the same way you would buy a traditional, just regular single family home. And that way you can have 3 tenants in it if it's a quad, and you live in one of them, and then you can have 3 tenants paying you rent every single month. And what's important to note is that the bank will use the rent that the tenants are paying. They'll credit you with that to help you qualify for that loan to buy the entire property. So that's important. But I also mentioned at the beginning, we're going to talk about the blockchain. And the blockchain is bringing a whole entire spin to real estate. And what they're using the Ethereum blockchain. And they're using that to help them raise money. So I'm going to give you an example. This is the best way to put an example. Say, for example, you're a real estate investor and you want to flip a house. The house is for sale for $50,000. Typically, you have to raise the money, or you have to go to a hard money lender, and they'll give you the money at a very high interest rate to buy the house. But now you can have an LLC. You can use the Ethereum blockchain, what they call these ERC20 tokens. And you can create a token and have an LLC own all the tokens. And the individual will buy these tokens. Say, for example, you want to buy the house at $50,000, and you create 100 tokens. So every token is worth $500, and most people can typically somewhat save for $500. So they can potentially own a piece of that real estate, $500. Get your friends, get your family, and they can potentially raise money through that. And then you'll buy the property at $50,000 because you've raised all the money through these tokens, and then you sell the property after you renovated it at $100,000. So now that property has doubled in essence. So individuals that bought tokens at $500 are now the token is now worth $1,000. So that's very important how individuals are doing it. And there's companies out there that are doing this every single day. So there's different ways you can do that. But the benefit of that is that individuals that are buying these tokens from you can invest in real estate at very low amounts now. And in addition, you can potentially skip the high interest rates of a hard money lender, because there won't be necessarily any interest of it. And also the individuals that are buying these tokens can freely sell it. It's an ERC20 token. It can be freely sold on the marketplaces, and which is different than how traditionally done, because if you buy a piece of an LLC, a membership interest, it's not necessarily as easy to potentially sell your membership interest or buy your membership interest. Depends on how that agreement you all have. And also, if you look into individuals to buy your ERC20 token, can be found all over the world. So this is something that's very, very new when it comes to real estate. And I want individuals to start thinking about that, how they can use the blockchain to essentially raise money, because these ERC20 tokens are pretty much standard. You can find the code online, and now you can essentially fix up your entire neighborhoods, fix up your entire blocks, and just start changing that. And you can once you sell it, you get all the money, and then you can redeem the ERC20 token for actual cash, and then you can use that money to either start buying commercial property, 5 units or more, or start buying a small hotel, or start buying different office spaces. I mean, there's many things you can go about when it comes to real estate, and adding this wrinkle of the blockchain is giving individuals a lot more ways to raise money. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. We talked about a lot. We talked about the different legal entities from different countries. We talked about how different ways to raise money to buy real estate. We talked about the blockchain, add a new twist to it, and many other things. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. This has been episode 43. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we're one step closer to 1,000 episodes. Thanks.
See, you want the fame and I want the chain. We ain't got the same focus. I came in the game.